What's up, guys? Here to show you guys how I rig up for sturgeon. This video I'm making is basically for the Team Hard Life guys. I talked to in the live stream today, and Albert was asking me, about like how I do my weight setup and the reasons why I do it. So basically, you know, I mentioned I keep a lot of weights on hand, and that's because sturgeon fishing, you tend to lose weights here and there. It's not super frequent for me, but there's times where I get snagged too and I lose weights. So these I just happened to pick up because they were on sale. They were like $1.50 a pack, so I got them. But just some 8-ounce cannonballs, some 5-ounce pyramids because that's all they had left, so I just bought them all out. But I run heavy lead, and I'll tell you the reasons why, and we'll get to that in a little bit. But what you're gonna need is, which I need also because I'm super low, but you're going to need some Dacron for your main leader. And the reason why I run Dacron for my main leader is because sturgeon, their bodies are very coarse and very rough. So if you're using like a mono leader, basically they're going to break your line if they just keep tumbling around or they rub against structure or anything like that, or against rocks. Then it's going to break your line. So 130-pound Dacron is my suggestion, and not saying any of this is the right way to do anything. This is just the way I do things. So, and the way I've had success. So, as your main leader, you're going to want to run Dacron, 100%. You could do things like pre-tie hooks like I do. So when I'm out fishing, I don't have to sit there and tie leaders the entire time. Run some scents, some bloody tuna oil, some sturgeon feast, frenzy, whatever, whatever you can find, stuff like that. Have a good cut knife for all your baits in your box. This is a lifesaver for me and a huge time saver. Some elastic thread to tie your baits to the shank of your hook, and I'll get to that part too. I run, the swivels I run personally are these ones. They're rated at 250 pounds saltwater. It seems overkill, but they're really small. They're really strong. I've never, ever had an issue with these. If I can remember the brand name, I'll, message that or put it in the comments below eventually. And you're going to want to run sliders. So your weight's going to attach to here, running down your main line like this, and keeps your main line from getting beat up and whatnot, instead of just using, the eye of the weight, and it's just destroying your line. So you're going to want to run sliders, heavy swivels, basically, like I said. And that's basically it. The sturgeon rig is not that complicated. When it comes to line, I personally suggest don't run anything under 30-pound test, and anything up to 50-pound is perfect. Anything over than that, that's personal preference. But, I've caught 6.5-foot sturgeon, 100-something pounds on, 20-pound test. It's just about the way you fight them. So, line spoolered, I don't care how cheap it is. Just keep one in your bag because you're going to run through a line eventually. So, but that's basically it. Things to cut your line: nail clippers, scissors, box knife, whatever. But onto the main rig. Basically, what it is this is what it's going to look like sitting on the ground. So you have your main line right here. This is your main line. To a slider right here. To your weight. And just a bead to protect your knot. To the Dacron. And this is a 9-aught barbless Gamakatsu Big River bait hook. So these are pretty big, but the reason why you want to run these is so when you have your bait on there, say this is a piece of bait, it's going to sit on the shank of your hook like so, and then you have all this hook exposure right here. So that's basically why you want to run that. And you want to tie, like I said, some elastic thread around your bait to the shank of the hook and to your leader. So that way when you cast, it doesn't just fly off your barbless hook. So just a little thing to keep in mind. And always run a bead, yeah, again, to protect your knot, because you're running heavy weights, so it's going to just slide and beat up your knot. But if you're running heavy line and you have good uni knot, which is what I run on everything. On every single knot in my rig, it is a uni knot. So, I always keep a backup whole rig set up like this, just in case. Give it to a friend if they need it or whatever. But again, like, here's the hooks I run. Just Big River bait. I think, oh, sorry, these are 8/0 I just picked up. I wanted to try a little bit smaller than the 9/0, so I went with 8s. But normally, these are my go-to right here. Gamakatsu 8/0 barbless octopus hooks. And these are amazing. Razor sharp, never bent one, never had an issue. Amazing hooks. And, backups tied. And that's basically how you're going to run a sturgeon rig. So, all right, and now on to why I use certain weights in certain river conditions when I'm going for sturgeon. So, the reason why I will use a bank sinker is if the river's real mellow and kind of just lazy and moving around like this, and there's not a lot of current going on, it's not bullying your line around, then, you can get away with a 4, 5, or 6 ounce. Just play with it and see how much if your weight's popping, and it keeps pushing your weight down river and pushing your bait around and pulling your bait around, because eventually with that happening, because you're putting your bait on a barbless hook, eventually it is going to come apart and bust up unless you have the mesh netting around it and stuff like that. But in a lazy river condition, you're probably good for the most part. Even if it's semi kind of turbulent, you should be all right. With a 6 most of the time is my go-to. But lately I've been running 8s, and I don't have an 8-ounce pyramid sinker like the 6. So, but this is an 8-ounce pyramid lead. And the reason why I run pyramid leads is that the river is really rough. And I'm sure this can apply to saltwater fishing as well. When the water's really rough and bowling your bait around, and you just cannot get your weight to stick and get your pull to get that good, arc on it when you have it in the rod holder, you have that nice tension and stuff like that you want. The pyramid sinker will come in handy. And I use a 4-sided pyramid sinker. So when it catches in, like, say this is like a little bar of, the sand or whatever, and your weight is hitting like this and it catches, it's gonna basically, the 8-ounce right here, if it's doing the same thing like this 6, this is gonna stick. And if there's a sturgeon hits it, this brass swivel, these little brass swivels on these sliders, they're strong, but eventually they'll give way to this Dacron right here. And this is 40-pound Dacron. And the reason why I use this is because this is going to be stronger than this. So the tension between you and the fish pulling like that, all that tension will break this Dacron off. It'll make this little pin bust out. And that's fine, because you would rather lose the weight than the fish, right? So that's why I have it set up the way I do. And the majority of the time when fighting sturgeon, I never lose sturgeon because of a bad hook set or anything like that. 99% of the time I lose them is because of line breakage, because of fraying or something like that, and there's a nick in the line, against structure, fighting them. But the weights, yeah, it's just keep it simple and just play with the river conditions, or whatever water conditions you happen to be fishing in. Hopefully that'll help you guys. So yeah, that's basically why I use certain weights in certain conditions. But normally I don't go past an 8. Anything past 8 is just like drastic, unless you use claw weights. That might be overkill in some conditions, but it will help you lock that down in the rocks and get your weight stuck, which is good. So you get your bait just sticking out like this and waiting for a sturgeon to take it, and then this line will just pop and break, and now you're on a direct fight, fighting the sturgeon on your main line like this now, direct fight. So yeah, that's basically all that on the weights. When it comes to rods, basically when it comes to rods, I'll run nothing special. I'm getting a Torium 30 HG in about a couple days, so that'll be on this rod in particular. But this is a brand new big water ugly stick. heavy. You can throw anything from a 4 to 10 ounce lead, 12 piece, or I'm sorry, 12 foot 2 piece, but just on a, just on a Penn Long Beach 60, nothing special. You can get away with running stuff like, a Penn 309 because it holds tons of line, and again, nothing special, cheap, works great. If you know how to handle big fish on these reels, you should have no problem. If you're experienced with Penns especially. But other than that, the only other piece of gear I'd recommend is when it comes to rod holders, Sturgeon are extremely strong. So if you want a good rod holder, I recommend getting a wild fin. I've had probably upwards to about 75 sturgeon hit on this rod holder while I have a rod in there, and this thing never even budges more than a 1/4 inch, no matter how hard something hits it and pulls drag or anything. So probably about 60 bucks this will run you if you can get them in your area. They're amazing. If not, look them up. But yeah, that's basically it. That's the Sturgeon rig, and if you guys have any more questions, hit me up, and I'll try and run you guys through it. Shoot, have a good one.